This is episode 147 of the Andrew Hines Real Estate Investing Podcast. Welcome to episode 147 of the Andrew Hines Real Estate Investing Podcast. Today I have Susan White Livermore on the show. Susan, for those who don't know her, is a very successful real estate entrepreneur. She's been in the business for quite some time. She's seen ups, she's seen downs. She's invested in Alberta before the real estate market crashed out there. She invested in the stock market before everything went south in 2008, 2009. So she has seen it all, for lack of a better way of saying it, and persevered and come through. And she came on the show today to share the lessons that she's learned along the way. Susan's definitely been in it for the long haul. She's done it successfully. She seems to have a lot of fun with what she does as a real estate investor. So she does everything from BRRRRs, larger investments as joint ventures. As she puts it, she just has fun making money. And I think that's about as good of an introduction as I can make for her. So I really hope you enjoy this episode. Just before we get into it, if you're new to the podcast and new to real estate investing, I recommend going right back to episode 1 and working your way all the way through. I have a cash flow spreadsheet that you can grab off my website at andrew-hines.com if you'd like to use that while you analyze deals. If you wouldn't mind, hit the like, subscribe, notification bell if you haven't already done so, and leave us a comment on this episode. Let us know what you think. If you're an audio listener, I would be greatly appreciated if you would leave a 5-star rating and review to help this show reach more people. So without further ado, please enjoy episode 147 with Susan White Livermore. Hello and welcome to the Andrew Hines Real Estate Investing Podcast. I have Susan White Livermore on the show, and she's going to tell us her story. I know none of it, so thank you very much for being here today.
Thanks for having me. This is fun.
Yeah, well, you made the trip down, so let's make it worthwhile. I want to go right back to the beginning, the basics. Give me everything, as if I'd never heard your story, because I haven't.
Okay. So basically how I got into real estate.
Yeah. So starting, what inspired it? When did that happen?
Yeah. Mine's the no excuse story for the individual that's thinking about getting into real estate investing and finds all sorts of excuses as to why not. So I was first inspired by my brother he's about 6 years younger than me. And in his second year university, he decided he was going to buy a house, move into it, rent out a bunch of rooms to his buddies. Essentially, he was all about living for free. That was his goal. And I remember thinking at the time, okay, kid, you've got no money, you've got no credit, no job, no down payment, and the last time I checked, you're at least $20,000 in debt. How on earth are you going to make this happen? But sure enough, he found what was an investor at the time, or a joint venture partner at the time. I didn't know anything about that. And together they bought the property and they split it 50-50, like no paperwork, no nothing. They just did this thing. So he managed to get the property. They held that property for 5 years. I remember watching from afar, wow, this kid has guts. Like, he's determined to make some money, and like he's going to be worth a lot. Like, because he didn't see roadblocks like the general population do. And so they held that property for 5 years. After 5 years, they decided to sell it. My brother basically lived for free, and then they sold that property after 5 years for $100,000. And at that time, that was a lot of money. So I remember thinking, whoa, like there's something to this. Fast forward, I don't know, maybe 2-3 weeks after he sold that property, turned around and he bought a property in behind Georgian College in Barrie. So all he was doing was just moving the house closer to where he currently lived, because he was self-managing. And he calls me up and he said, yeah, I just bought a house. I'm going to rent it out to students, brand new house. And I thought to myself, I had the fear of being left behind. So the following weekend, I was living in Milton at the time. I went and I picked out my brand new house, did no research, did nothing. I had no idea what the units would rent for, had no idea what the bylaws were. Frankly, I didn't care. I was just like, let's do this, right? And had no concept of what a new house is like, and that they don't always close on time, because these were supposed to close in June.
So it was new construction, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
as a coach today, I would never advise what I did, but it worked out, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
they closed as expected in June. We added bedrooms and family room and bathroom to the basement. We used the model home as the house, come in, see what it's going to look like.
Yeah.
And we had it rented out immediately, both houses, before we even took possession.
Oh, that's beautiful.
So I'm like, this is awesome. So it was fun. 6 months later, we bought another one. And then, it gets boring because real estate is really, really, other than right now, real estate's very slow.
Yeah,
or has been
usually,
very slow.
yeah.
And that's, at the time, I didn't appreciate that it's boring, it's designed to be boring, it's actually a very stable source of income. I didn't really understand that until about 2008, 2009. So after the 3 properties, I got bored. I stopped investing in real estate and started throwing money in the stocks because I could see on a daily basis. I could go into work and I could see, oh, I made this amount of much money today. So that was a lot of fun. Obviously, I like to follow the high. And then 2008 hit and I started losing a lot of money. And I was one of those people that put my head in the sand and I didn't sell when I should have. 2009 came along. We had our 3rd kid, and I had a choice to fix. We moved from Milton to Barrie, and my priority, because I didn't have to work, I will be honest about that, was to fix our pension plan because, as far as I could see, we didn't have a pension, like everything, the student properties and the stocks that were going down fast were all that we had. So that was my priority. First, before I found a job, I was out to solve the pension problem. So that was my only goal initially. And so I thought, you know what, if I'm going to do this seriously, I probably should educate myself and do this properly. Backing up, comparing the stocks to the rental properties, I could see that the rental properties, although at the time they weren't appreciating in value, I was still getting mortgage pay down and I was still getting cash flow. So to me, they felt like and I was controlling them and they were insured. There were just so many pluses that I'm like, you know what? I can rely on this just because first and foremost, I'm in control. So I went and decided that that's the route I'm going to use in order to create our pension plan. I'm going to figure out how to do this thing called real estate investing properly. And so I went out and I convinced both my brothers and my father, like to join me. And we went and educated ourselves on like every different aspect of real estate investing that I could get my hands on. So we were doing weekend courses for 2 years essentially. And it took me a year to really get going until I started really understanding the fundamentals of economics. And then I was like, okay, this thing is actually fun because I can anticipate what's going to happen and I can better plan. So it didn't feel like, actually the second time out, deciding to buy with knowledge was actually more difficult than being completely naive. Like completely naive, I was like, this is easy. But when you're serious about it, it gets a little scary. So yeah, second time out, once I understood the economics, then I was out buying crazy amounts of I won a ton of awards early on. And
okay, what year would that be? Like you really started kicking it on?
By 2011, 2012, I was buying and buying and buying. So I moved different strategies based on what the market was doing.
Yeah.
So I did a lot of student properties. I got into rent to own.
Yeah.
I've done flips. I've done wholesaling. And then I've done BRRRRs in Calgary and then a ton of BRRRRs here in Barrie.
Okay. And what number a year when you were winning the awards, where were you at then and versus now?
Properties?
Yeah, how many were you adding or flipping or adding?
In 18 months, I think I bought 15 properties or something like that.
Wow, that's busy.
Yeah, for the first year, I don't work that hard now.
Yeah.
I'm more about lifestyle now. Also because my kids are older. And if you think when your kids are older, they're going to be less work, you're wrong. They're actually more work. So yeah, was doing a lot. I've done over 100 transactions, but really now I'm trying to do as much as I can with the least amount of time as I possibly can, and I'm following what the market does. So
yeah, talk to me about that. Yeah, you said you understood the economics. What is it that you came to understand, and how specifically did that impact you in your actual business plan?
I'm going to tell you, can I kind of change that question a bit, is how I made decisions to move out of different strategies?
Sure, yeah, if that's an easier way to look at it.
Easier way of okay. I started looking at how many touches, how much time was each strategy taking me. So I thought that student properties was going to be great, but then there was so many touches. Even when I brought in a property manager, they didn't have enough staff to deal with turnover in the end of August, so I always had my hands in there. I hated August 31st, September 1st. It was like a 36-hour, go as hard as you possibly can kind of thing. And it was just, I decided that it was too much work for the amount of money we were making. And we weren't actually making as much money because every year when you turn over, you don't want to be turning over every year. You want to be turning 2 to 3 years, ideally.
Yeah, I would shoot for 3, 4 sometimes even.
Well, right now with the market, the rents rising as quickly as they are, I want them more frequent, but it depends on what the market's doing, right? But on average, when it's in a balanced market, you're right, 3 to 4 years. But so switching over every year was getting expensive. So I got out of the student properties and thought, okay, let's do rent to own. Rent to own was fantastic. Like all the work was up front, finding the tenant buyers, and I found some cheats. I was looking at buying leads off property managers, off mortgage brokers, off other investors. So here, I give you $5,000, but if I'm going to make 30%, what do I care about that $5,000 to $10,000 that they're getting up front? You have to still do your due diligence. If you don't do your due diligence, that program does not work.
Yeah.
And then 2017 hit, and the market went up so crazy, and I was giving away $50,000, $75,000 worth of equity in
on the
properties,
sales.
Which I was like, oh, this hurts.
Yeah. That's why I never liked rent to own, because you had to sell the property. I don't want to sell the property. I want to keep it. Yeah.
So then you're thinking, okay, if the market does this every once in a while, that you get this crazy massive growth, do I really want to be, like, it'd be better to hold on to the properties. And that's when I started to let go. So I probably really let go of the rent to owns in 2017. I was doing them sporadically and then really let go in 2017. And I'm grateful that I did now because of what's going on right now. And then I really started into the BRRRR. So I was buying single family houses. I started in Calgary and built them into legalized duplexes, because in markets where people were growing, so markets that people were moving into that market, and at the time Calgary was going crazy, and not a lot of people were building legalized suites in Calgary. So after we built them, the amount of appreciation we added to the property was like awesome. We were making tons of money up front. Unfortunately, at the time, I decided to hold on to those properties, and that market turned. So from that, I learned I will never go into a market that is, if you can't define for me what the number one or the main industry is in that market, I'm out.
Oh yeah, that's a great way of looking at that. Yeah, if you can easily say what's the number one industry, you don't want it.
Because as soon as you
unless you're buying it on the dip,
yeah. But as soon as you know what then if that thing gets hit, you're in trouble.
Yeah, you don't want to be reliant on.
No, that's why I love Toronto or suburbs.
So diverse, right?
I can't tell you what.
Yeah, what's Toronto's number one? They
I have no
so
idea.
many things. A lot of tech, but there's so many things, right? Manufacturing,
No idea. So, other than the one exception, I would say to that would be universities, because even in a downturn, universities will attract.
Which is what I've always said. That's why I always preach student rentals. And I'm on the fence with that. I interviewed a guy that was big into student rentals at one point. He's like, well, It's like, no, we do see shifts sometimes, especially with cities that are only university towns.
Yeah.
And
if they overpopulate.
right. And I think we're about to see a lot more of a focus on trades versus higher, like university education, because university doesn't give practical skills for the most part.
They don't.
So whereas trade schools, you can monetize that right away. I think we're going to see more of that. And like, if you believe the whole Gary Vee model, where he's saying, basically go make it for yourself. Like, it's done through hard work. It's not, a degree is not going to do it.
Determination, mindset.
So that for me kind of made me start to think, well, what if something did happen to enrollment? And what if enrollment goes down? And then I started thinking, okay, well, would my rentals pivot well into family rentals? And the answer I kept coming back with is no, not really. And they wouldn't cash flow. So actually I made a decision to pivot out of that and put my money elsewhere because of that. Not that it's bad, but for my concentration of my portfolio, having it all in that didn't feel great.
Very, very good points, because you got to look at what is the environment doing? What is the economics doing? But I really hadn't thought about student properties since I left, right?
Yeah. I just firmly love them for in management. Like, I got it down to like a T. Oh yeah, like the systems.
What market were you in?
London. Yeah.
Okay.
Near Western. So, and I had really nice products, so it was easy to rent.
Think, and this might sound awful, but I think there's a difference between university students and college students.
Oh yes, there is, definitely.
I hate to say it, but like, I was like, oh my God, like, it was crazy.
Well, there's this old tradition of going to university, not wanting to be left out, even though university, I firmly don't believe it's in most people's best interest to go anymore, because I think going out and hustling and taking that 4 years to build your wealth is a hell of a lot better than taking 4 years to accumulate debt and achieve zero or very little technical skills.
Excellent question. I know. Now I'm turning around and interviewing you.
Oh, no, but this is what this is about, right? We'll just have a conversation.
You're about to have your first child.
Yeah.
Right? Will you encourage that child to go to university or college?
I'll let them choose, but no, I won't be encouraging university per se. I will encourage learning.
Yeah.
And I want to teach them to be a lifelong learner.
Yes.
Constant learning from day one, and why. Teach the why. Why do we learn? What does it allow us to do? And you want to go to university? Great. I'll help you pay for it if you can tell me what it's going to accomplish.
Yes.
And kind of put it back on them. And my buddy, he does a really good job of this with his kid. Like, he lets them do little entrepreneurial things, and he helps them run their businesses. And I just love the learning experience, because they get to see for themselves, and they start asking, well, why do people go to a job when they could just do this? Great question.
They don't know. Because they don't know.
But they'll never take that if I just he'll never take it if I just tell him. I have to allow him to discover that for himself. Yeah. So that's
words don't teach.
That's where I'm at now with it. I mean, I love that I went to business school, and I love that what I took from that. But did I need to, and was it worth it? And if I knew, the key things I learned about real estate beforehand, would I have done that? No, I probably wouldn't have. I probably would have just gone straight into real estate and used that 4 years to crush. I don't know. It's hard to say.
I think it depends on the person, but I've spoken to a ton of chartered accountants lately. And I have a newfound respect for them, because a lot of the people that I'm impressed with, they went and they worked for like the big banks, or not the big banks, the big companies, Deloitte, whatever it is. And a lot of them were looking at the small to medium-sized companies, and they were looking for companies that had a great idea, making great money, but poorly managed. And then they would go in and they would say, listen, I can see where you're not doing well. Let me come in. Let me take an equity share. And I'm like, now that's a reason to go to university and get your CA.
Pretty practical skill, right? A CA is immediately like it's not a hands-on skill, but it is certainly an applicable skill.
You can see where they're doing poorly and why.
So business degree, that's the argument, right?
Like business, and then your law, your doctor,
those are the actual practical application skills, like doctors and engineers.
I don't want my kids to do any of that, to be honest. They're my heart is in business. Yeah. And I like to teach them, don't try and be the smartest kid in the room. Go find the smartest kid in the room and cheat off them. Like, that's where they tell you to do it all by yourself in school, I'm like, when you get out in the real world,
You want to cheat.
you want to cheat. That's the name
We
of the
actually learned the
game.
exact
It's-
opposite.
Yes. But no wonder so many struggle
Yeah.
because they're trying to do it on their own. And it's
Yeah.
like, no. And I tell my kids, what do you do every day? I go for coffee. I go for lunches and dinners. And I'm looking for the smartest people I can find that have the best opportunities to match up somehow. I don't know how that's going to be, but it
Yeah.
has served me so well. And it's a ton of fun. And I get to meet a ton of amazing people
Yeah.
in that process.
When did you stop working a job, or did you?
2009, I was working as I was in human resources. I was the director of human resources for a natural health product company. And after my third kid, we moved to Barrie, and they asked me back, but I'm like, I can't do that drive. So 2009 is when I really started. I put my kids in daycare like right away because I wanted to get out in the real world. And so I started with the pension, fell in love with it, and just continued on and made that I'm not even going to call it a job. I'm not going to call it a career because it's been more of a hobby and joy for me. The minute I started to feel like it was work, I would back off and I'm like, okay, what am I doing that I don't like doing? And I would immediately turn around and hire someone to do that, because the worst thing that can happen, I think, is that you get so sick of it, you stop doing it. The strategy is good, but my talent isn't everything. So I focus on the things that I really enjoy doing, the things I'm strong at doing, and I hire for everything else. And I accept that I'm not going to take the whole pie. That's okay. I'll take a piece of the pie.
Yeah. So your business now is mostly BRRRRs, right? Is that how you're adding now?
Yeah, I do BRRRRs. The last thing in the last year, all I've done is flips and bought into apartment buildings.
Okay.
And I'm making money on finder's fees. I'm making money where opportunities show up. The other thing I'm looking at now is buying into equity into businesses too, right?
Nice.
And I'm learning how to stock hack. So the one I swore off doing stocks of all time in 2008, 2009. I'm like, this is horrific. Why would anyone do this? I didn't know how. But when you teach someone how, and that there's all sorts of really cool strategies that can blow your mind, you're like, well, the strategy or the subject isn't wrong, my strategy was wrong. So now it's like a video game for me. And I was in a mastermind meeting last week and comparing my notes of how I'm doing stock hacking with the guys, and I'm beating them. And it's simply because my ego doesn't get in the way. I stick to my strategy. I know what I'm capable of. I know what I'm not capable of, and I don't go after the big one because I don't know how to get out of it.
Do you do the more conservative approach to
I'm doing
stock hacking?
puts and spreads.
Puts and spreads, okay.
And from what I've seen and talking to most people, where they get themselves in trouble is a naked call or naked calls. Okay. So selling out of the money, sort of. Selling out of the money.
So they're selling calls? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I've never done one. I'm going to stay out of it because I don't need it. If I'm hitting in the last year 73% for someone who's just a beginner.
You made 73%?
I'm at 73%, and I'm
for the last 12 months.
The last 12 months.
Wow.
And it's a video game for me. I'll be standing in line. I buy my leads, so I'm not trying to be the smartest kid in the room. I'm buying off the people that are geeking out and loving this stuff.
So who are you learning from in terms of for specific stock,
how the training
for trades? No, I think you took Erwin's course, right?
I took Erwin's course,
but then in terms
I'm
of
taking the advanced right now.
Okay, yeah.
I buy my leads off Lee Lowell.
Okay, Lee Lowell, yeah.
And
he's really conservative, right?
And I don't do what he says. He likes this stock. Okay, I always I look for a $1 premium. In and around that, the same date he uses, and I'll buy. I was talking about my little strategies. I learned a little bit. So the first day I'll buy 2. And inevitably, the next day it drops. So then I'll buy another one the next day, and I just sort of buy in, and then eventually it'll come back up. So my premiums, I don't know. It's just I'm just learning a little bit. Will it always work that way? Probably not. But right now I know a lot of my colleagues got really hit in February, and
Yeah,
was
you're doing
fine.
well? Okay,
Yeah.
so people will have to follow you to figure out what you're
No,
doing.
no, I'm not teaching that.
Yeah, this is a topic I really have to like get my head in that space.
It's fun.
I've
It's
read the
fun.
different books on it, and I've
It's
done some of Irwin's course on it, but I never really got into it yet.
when
Yeah.
you like standing in line waiting to go to the bank or something like that, and you do a trade, and I'm like, I'll be with my kids. Oh, I just made $500.
Yeah,
how
that
much
is-
fun
that
is
is
that,
fun, yeah.
right? And it's inspiring them to look into it. And I was like, how did you just make $500
Right.
standing in line?
That's the thing I love about that is that it teaches people to question convention, right? Like what is it we do normally? Like why are we so habitual in doing what our parents did and what their parents did? And why do we think that just because this is the way it was done, that this is the right way?
Yeah. And in today's day and age, with what is going on in the market right now, because we have inflation, like everything costs so much more, you're not finding a way to make money while you sleep. Like Warren Buffett said, you're going to work till the day you die. What you could afford last year is not the same as
Right.
what you can afford this year. And a simple thing that I every time I hear people say, well, I don't feel comfortable doing that, I cringe. Like if you own a home today, chances are you've made $100,000 to $200,000, maybe more in the last year in terms of appreciation.
More than your job. For most people, your home made more than your work did.
Yeah.
And your home did it for free.
But so many people won't take their money out of their house to invest in something like another house. Or they're just like, well, I need to keep that safe. Well, you continue on your plan, you're never going to have the retirement that you planned. Like that, to me, with safe, and I see real estate, bricks and mortar, you can control it.
Yeah.
Safest thing you can buy into, provided you're buying in a right market. GTA is hot right now.
Yeah, provided you buy, I always just look at it with cash flow so that even if the value goes down, so that you're not worried because you're still paying off your mortgage. Like you said before, like, yeah, I was still getting my mortgage paid down, even though the properties weren't going up. That's okay. If people are so spoiled because their properties have gone up,
Yeah.
Doesn't mean it'll always be that way.
No.
But to your point on inflation, I really do think if we're factoring in all the costs that people have to bear, we're more like a 30% inflation because housing, right? That's one of the biggest
and your
drivers.
rent, nobody's job's gone up 30%.
Right. It's not. So unless you're finding a way to invest and kind of flip the game around so that you're benefiting from inflation rather than getting hurt by it, things aren't going to look good.
No. And
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are going to get caught off guard because everything is going up. And
Yeah.
if you're not looking to buy assets, you're in trouble because holding money in the bank account is not working. Buying GICs is not working. You're losing money.
Right. And I hear this talk about living wage. There's so much talk about that, $15 an hour and, they're going to increase it. Like, and people are saying, well, it should be 18, should be 19. And
Stop.
that won't change anything because that's just going to drive the costs of everything up. And here's the funny part that people don't consider. What if an employee is genuinely only worth $12? If you raise the minimum wage above $12, you've cut that employee out of the marketplace because no employer is going to pay somebody what they're not worth. So now all you do by increasing minimum wage is you eliminate part of the workforce that's not worth that. People who are actually aspiring to be good, they want to apprentice. Let me apprentice at $6 an hour and learn. It's better than paying for university and paying to learn. I can get paid while I learn. And then when I'm finally worth more, then I can earn it. I think it's just so funny. It's like the definition of insanity. You do the same thing over and over again. Like government policy and minimum wages created this problem and the money printing. Are they really going to solve it by increasing minimum wage? No, we need to get, to a more model of self-responsibility. And then of course, investing, learning, becoming self-sufficient and not dependent on a job.
Get out of your parents' head.
Yeah.
This is not your parents' world.
Nope.
And you want to get ahead. It's not going to be by doing what your parents did. I can guarantee you that. And our children won't be able to do what we do.
Right. It's all going to be different, right? I mean, just looking at they have so many, whatever comes after millennials, they're like living at their
Generation Z.
whatever it is. Yeah. They're like living with their family, like they're not going to have the same opportunity to buy a house.
Well,
Unless they learn the new strategy, but not the same way. They're not going to do it the same way. Like think about it.
That's not a problem.
In the 50s, one parent could work, the other stays home. They could have a house, a car, and savings, and kids, and that was all good. Times have changed, so now we gotta adapt with it, obviously.
Yeah, and our kids are going to have to buy a 2-unit place or a 3-unit place. So what?
Yeah.
They're going to be further ahead, learning how to be a property manager.
Yeah.
Holding onto that property for a while, living in one unit, moving up to the next unit, moving up to the third unit.
Yeah,
maybe,
exactly.
Holding onto that property, refinancing, pulling their money out, and maybe buying them. So it's a process. But the beautiful thing about it, like traditionally, we bought condos, right?
Yeah.
We didn't get to choose who lived beside us.
Mm-hmm.
They buy a 3-unit place. They can choose who's in it with them.
You can select your tenant.
What's
that's great.
Bonus.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
But we look at it so negatively that, or that it can't be done. It irritates me when I say, when you hear people say, well, what are our children going to do? Well, stop thinking the way we did.
Right. So the ones that critically think will realize I have to adapt. The ones that don't will do that definition of insanity thing where you try the same thing that already isn't working and keep trying it.
Yeah. Or parents give large amounts of money, but then you're just the enable tree, right? You don't teach them how to fend for themselves.
By doing it for them.
And how empowering will that be if they can do it themselves? And maybe you give them a little bit of down payment to get into that property, but just buying them a single family house,
you're
not putting them ahead.
Yeah, and I'll have people reach out to me and they'll do that. I'm buying one house. I'm like, great. What are you going to do after that house?
They're stuck, right?
Yeah, you got to have a plan. Like you got to have a value add, or you're going to borrow money, or what are you going to do? How are you going to go past that, right? If it really is about retirement or creating wealth or what have you.
Stop working at some day so you can do what you really want to do.
Live like Susan.
You know what? It's not the worst. I never
It doesn't sound like the worst.
No.
Who am I going to have coffee with today?
Or, this year I learned how to play golf. And now I've just changed coffee and lunch to golfing.
Yeah.
But it's pretty awesome.
Yeah. I just posted that as a story this morning, that the highest form of wealth is being able to wake up any morning and say, I can do whatever I want today. And I truly believe that. That's been the focus of everything I've done, is just creating absolute freedom and completely eliminating dependency.
Yeah. I didn't think it would happen this quickly.
Well, for you got in at a decent time early on, right? You learned from your brother, right?
Relative.
Yeah, relative.
I started in 2006.
Yeah.
I have 2017 and the last year to thank for it. I've gone through a divorce, and I can happily say that I'm as financially successful as today as I was before the divorce. I'm not sure how that happened, but thank God for the last year and a bit.
Yeah.
So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, inflation has done investors a big solid, except for trying to buy more.
Well, you have to think, just look at it differently, right?
Yeah, you can't get it stuck in that, we used to pay this for this.
Yeah, I used to put a $70,000 deposit down, and now I'm at 150.
Yeah.
And I can't buy what I used to buy. But rents are changing again. We're really starting to see rents go up again. I don't know if people can afford those rents that are going up. This is my concern.
They bring in their in-laws and their family. They bring in people to live and split the rent. I'm seeing that. I don't want that either.
People. So bigger buildings makes more sense to me at this point in time.
Yeah.
Also because cap rates are coming down. So every time a cap rate comes down, you're like, that's huge money.
Yeah, it is. It makes your building go up in value that much more. So what do you, are you open to kind of expanding your focus in area? I know you've invested in Calgary, but if you don't like cash flow in Barrie per se, do you expand out of that?
Anything that I own directly or with joint venture partners has been in and around Barrie. Mm-hmm. Just because I'm lazy. I don't want to travel. And I know my market inside and out. So if I'm managing it or overseeing it directly, I want it close to me, within an hour of me.
Gotcha.
I recognize that that's really, the money's not really there right now. So I have been investing a lot with colleagues in markets that they know really well. So I'm into the Kingston market. I've got one in Orillia, which isn't that far away. And having fun working through people that I know and trust. And it's back to building relationships, getting to know people, understanding what they're doing, how they're adding value. And I get to pick and choose what properties I get involved in. And I really focus on the ones that they can add value to. Things like adding extra units. So we bought a 32 unit, we're going to bring it up to a 40 unit. Well, that increases the rents for in this market. For every $100 that we increase the rent, that throws the value. When we first got into it, threw the value up $20,000, but now because the cap rates come down, we're closer to $25,000. So
yeah,
so much fun.
Isn't that incredible? If you just go sign a tenant up for $400 more, you've added $100,000 in value.
And see, when I look at like how much work do I have to do in order to make the same amount of money, and I can see their train of thought of how I'm going to get my money back within the time frame that they're talking about, so that I own what we call an infinity house. We have no original capital in our infinity apartment, and then I can go play more. So
I like that.
I don't see the need to do. Right now, when I do stuff on my own, like my flips and that, it has been a lot out of educating others. So I've been doing these flip houses, bringing in students, hiring a contractor, and letting them have the HGTV experience of what's really entailed. It's not as sexy as it looks on TV.
So these are your coaching students, kind of showing them what you're doing?
They're university and high school students, so
Okay.
I'm going even younger. Like they're working for the summers.
Okay.
I've had two houses that were basically hoarder houses, so they got to see all the work of taking everything out, and their eyes were open. And then, they think it's like just add some paint and do some flooring, and then their contractor shows them, well, no, we've got some mold happening here, or we've got carpenter ants or whatever. So they learn that there's, as soon as you taken that wallboard down, you don't always know what's going to be behind it. And so, we'll bring them through the numbers. So we bought it for this price. Here's what we're anticipating the costs are going to be. Always have a cushion, because there's things you just don't know, especially within a hoarder house, because you can't see everything because the walls are covered with stuff.
Right, yeah.
And I, teaching them that when I do a flip, I look for $150 to $200 spread from the $200,000 from the purchase price to the sale price, anticipating that I'll be putting in, $50,000 to $80,000, and oftentimes we're well over 100.
Okay, and what type of properties would these be in BRRRR? Are these like semi-detached? Are they detached homes?
They're detached homes.
For what price to buy for?
The two we did this year were $490 and $500.
You can still get that in BRRRR?
Off market.
Okay.
Not on.
So you got the hookups? Are you talking to Manny?
I do pink letter campaign.
Okay, so you do your own marketing.
Or one of them we bought off a wholesaler.
Okay.
So $490, we put in $88,000 in renos. We had someone pay cash for it, so there was $13,000 in holding costs, and just in terms of the mortgage, so to speak. Then closing cost was another $10,000. We ended up selling for $765. At the end of the day, we made $120,000, but we weren't anticipating that it would sell for as high.
Okay.
So we lucked out there. Like that was more than you would normally expect to make.
So you're normally expecting around 100, 150?
No, to be honest, 50 to 80.
50 to 80, okay.
Yeah, I will. It's
but
worth
when things are
getting
going
out of
up
bed.
so fast, that's where I hear you about getting out of bed. Like if it just doesn't look good, you're just not going to do it. Like why would I get into that? Now, are you funding these with your own money, or is this generally investor money?
Investors.
So like on a loan or on a partnership?
On this particular one, we had like it was a mortgage, so we borrowed cash
Okay.
and paid them 9%.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I've done similar. That's a nice way of doing it. It keeps things clean. You don't have to show them all, here's a profit. Here's
They
how
don't
we
care.
calculate it. No, here's your percentage return. Nice and easy.
Yeah. And we were paying them every month.
Yeah. That's what I've done too. Yeah. People tend to like that. Just
Yeah, it's clean, easy.
get a direct deposit in your bank account.
Yeah.
And
And
it
then
makes
there's
me
no
feel really
risk on
professional.
their part, really.
Yeah.
If I'm going to bring you in as a partner, there's got to be risk on your part.
Right. Well, they're exposing their capital, obviously, but you have a business plan. You have
and
what
you
you're
know
going
what?
to do.
At the end of the day,
Yeah.
working with me,
Yeah.
even if it went sour, they're getting their money back.
Right.
I'm going to find
Yeah.
a way because this business is so small.
Yeah,
like
yeah,
the
I agree.
circle.
Yeah.
If you don't pay somebody, you're shooting yourself in the foot. So
Absolutely.
if it went
Yeah.
sour, they're going to be getting all their money back for sure.
Right. Right. And I've operated the same way with that too. Yeah. That's very important. So I like that you said that about the joint venture partnership, because that's what I see a JV partnership really is like running mates in your business. You know, we're going to both add something to this business beyond just capital. We're going to put our creativity, our efforts, you know, our organizational skills together.
Yeah. Oh, I'll use a joint venture partner. They'll put in all the money. They'll get the mortgage for it.
Yeah.
And then I'll do everything else. I'll put
Yeah.
the deal together and then we'll share that 50-50. So
then you're not having to qualify.
yeah.
And I'm guessing
at
you'll
a
own your
point where I
portion.
can't.
You'll own your portion with a corporation, I'm guessing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's the other thing I've been doing this year is refinancing everything, trying to move my equity around as much as possible and it's been it's challenging, but it's been fun.
Are your properties mostly in your personal name?
Nothing is in my personal
Nothing in your...
at my personal house. That's it.
Oh, you should have no problem getting mortgages then.
You have to guarantee everything, right?
Right,
So-
but that won't show on your personal. So,
No, it won't show,
So what
yeah.
I've seen people do, people with a lot of properties, is you just go, like, you compartmentalize things. Like, what does Scotia know about? What does BMO know about?
Yeah, but when eventually you have to hand over your T4s and that sort of thing. So don't they find it out then?
Well, I
feel like
pay
they
myself
have.
a T5 out of my numbered corp, which is just
Yeah.
like a hold co. And I don't really get any questions around
No?
that.
All right, we gotta talk.
It's a need to know basis that, from what I understand, people who really acquire a lot. But then what I'll see people do beyond that is really just getting into credit unions where they don't care. They more approach it with like a kind of a commercial approach. So they'll restrict your loan to value a touch and they'll give you the 25-year AM. Or maybe they'll give you 30, it depends. But then you can unlimit your growth. As long as you're meeting their metrics at the end with your cash flow and they get to know you, it's like, okay, you got another one? Sure, yeah, we can do that. So, I mean, I like that idea. I see a lot of people getting it done that way. And then, of course, you get into the bigger commercial and that's how you're working anyway. There's no max, right? The more, the better.
Yeah.
They just move you up into
It's
the
just
higher level of
easier.
the lending department. Like, oh, now you're over 500 million. We'll move you up.
Yeah, yeah.
Make
Yeah.
your way to the top.
It's fun. I could talk about this stuff for hours.
Yeah.
That's why I say
Yeah, I
what
was
I
thinking,
do is the best.
Which way are we going to go with this? Where's the 32 unit building?
Kingston.
That one's
Yeah.
in Kingston.
Yeah.
So your partner is
In Kingston, or not in Kingston.
You're not the working partner on this one. Are you a money partner on this one?
I'm a money partner and I raise funds. Like if I really believe in it, I just start talking about it. That's just who I am, right? Like
Yeah.
when people ask me what I'm doing and I don't shut up. And
Okay.
so I'll eventually track people and so into deals I'm into. And so I've been doing that as well.
So is that, when you've raised those funds, has that been a bunch of equity partners all coming in together on this deal?
Yeah.
Okay, that's more what that is. And it makes sense for a building so big because there's a lot of upside to be had there.
Yeah. Yeah, and if I didn't believe in it or didn't think that it would help them get them to their goals, it's not.
Yeah.
But for anyone that can park money for 3 years, I think it's brilliant.
Absolutely. I'm right now, talking about going with multiple partners, doing a trailer park campground.
Yes, brilliant.
So
it's like
just like
license to print money.
Exactly, right? I mean, it's harder to lend on them. Like you're going to get closer to 55% loan to value. But so we've firmed up on this one. I'm not going to get into too much detail just yet. But basically, I see an opportunity to, like, say, one trailer site. If it was, a Airbnb, Airstream, or something like that done up real nice, there's potentially like $40,000-$50,000 of gross income
Extra money.
per slot, right? So right now it's kind of being operated as like a seasonal.
Is it nice?
I mean, I've
Or
never
you
trailer
could make
parked.
a section of it really
Yeah,
cool. Is
I
it
think
by water?
It's got a pond right in the middle of it, and then it's
Yeah, it would be worth
5 minutes
testing
to a
out
lake.
to see what happens,
Right. Well, I've seen the Airbnb stuff and how it does, so I'm pretty pumped about it and what's possible. But it will be work. So we've got a few partners, and we're all going to kind of use our own initiatives to create income in different areas of the project,
So
like
cool.
glamping, like where you do walk-in camping in a tent with a bed in it and stuff like that.
So sort of like the high-end things that you see
Yeah.
in Africa when they're like for safaris, like the high-end tents. So you thinking that?
I'm not sure if I've seen that. I just kind of talked to the guys that I've done this with. They've sent me like stuff. Like there was one I saw which was like a platform in the water with a tent on it and a bed in the tent, and like so you just like flip up your tent flaps and then you're looking out onto the water.
That's cool.
And I'm not saying we would do that, but I mean I've heard of these getting like hundreds of dollars a night.
Yeah,
for a
because
tent.
it's unique. If it's unique and an experience.
Yes, a unique experience. So that's kind of the thought, is go in and create unique experiences and slowly build it up, get away from that whole rent this slip for a year. Don't do that. No seasonal RV spots. But so it's kind of an interesting
really cool.
thing. I like it when there's like you said, license to print money. It's all about how. It's what's it going to take. Yeah.
Once you own the land, whatever you do on it is just gravy, right?
And that was a big part of it for me too, is I want to control land, large portion of commercial land too, here in a good area. So that's kind of where my head's at. I want to get as much land as I can that's profitable, because down the road, land is gold.
They're not making any more.
They're not making any more of it, right? And I've always wanted that, right?
Again. They're not making any more land.
I've always wanted to control a bunch of land, right? Even on like the houses I've bought, I'm like, if you can get, extra yard or a side yard, right? You might be able to sever, you might be able to build a backyard unit. You never know what might change in the future.
That's, it's big and berry right now. It's garden suites.
The garden suites with tiny homes, or?
No, you can, as long as it doesn't take over 10% of the property.
Yeah. So you can do 10% of the gross area of the lot?
Yeah, but you have to be, they've just recently changed the rules. I think you have to be 7 feet in.
Okay. So
off the
side yard setback
line.
or backyard, rear yard setback?
Both.
Okay.
From the property line.
So 7 feet off. Okay. So centered in the backyard, or
sort of.
Yeah.
Can't be
depending on how big your yard is.
Yeah.
That's good that they're allowing it there, because I know London did pass some bylaws to allow rear yard units, but the requirements were so stringent that no one would ever be able to qualify. Like wouldn't, with the gross floor area requirements. And so from what I've heard, no one's really doing
we're doing them in Barrie for sure.
This is why I see like an opportunity, like getting like tiny homes on wheels and stuff, and then you crane them into the backyard, and you can do it that way. That's what I'm kind of thinking for the.
But how do you do the plumbing on that then?
So you have to put a box around it. Basically, you would run a trench with your water lines in directly, stub it straight up.
I have a pool house, so it's the same thing.
You just stub it up, and then you just build an insulated box around it. Yeah. I love those little problems. Like, how are we going to engineer this to work? And I'm not an engineer by trade or anything, but like, just like when we come into problems in a house, like we've got to carry this load down, or we have to, we want to make this functional. Like, that's why I always loved renovations, because it's like a jigsaw puzzle. How are we going to make it work? And that's one of the most enjoyable things that I can get into on the technical side for me.
Yeah. I think tiny homes and that pond that you're...
That's what I'm saying. Oh, that's ultimately the goal, would be to get more and more of those, and we'll build them right on site.
Because
like we'll
unique.
get a trailer frame, because the zoning will allow, as long as it's on wheels, we can do it. And part of the strategy would be go in and get it rezoned, or get a minor variance to allow us to operate year round. But as long as they're on wheels, we can build it, and it's like an awesome home. We can showcase it on Airbnb.
And you'll get those minimalists that don't bring a bunch of stuff with them anyway.
Well, and they want an experience, right? Can you? Yeah, like you said, if put it right on the water, they like open their curtains, they're looking out onto the pond, and they can go for a little nature hike. And this is kind of what's got the wheels turning in my head right now.
That's really cool.
Yeah,
really cool.
Not that this is supposed to be about me, but I love it. I love these organic real estate conversations.
This is my world. This is how I make money. It's like, what are you doing?
Right. Like, yeah, what can I take from what you're doing? But part of the reason I brought that up is just, yeah, with the rear yard units, like, you can get tiny homes now, say they're on wheels, but those could actually become really useful down the road for rear yard units. Like, what if you could have a pre-existing unit, cart it up to your house, throw a crane on it, and just drop it in the backyard, hook it up to the plumbing. And
well, they're putting pools like that, so.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see this evolution now that, and Hamilton's allowing the laneway houses. I'm not sure how common they're becoming just yet, but as this progresses, I think that whole tiny home movement is going to really pick up.
It's interesting.
Yeah. Anywho, is there anything else you'd like to share, kind of about your experience, a cool deal you're working on, or just some wisdom for our viewers and listeners that, kind of something you would like to teach them?
Well, I often leave with this. One of the things that I've really focused on since I started into real estate investing is what is it that's holding people back in terms of being able to take action? And it's always fear, right? There's some sort of fear. They've learned something along the way of how things are supposed to be done, and we're essentially asking them to do something almost in some ways opposite of what they've been taught. That, don't take risk, take the solid, sure way. And if you're recognizing that the solid and sure way doesn't feel right to you anymore, and you're struggling with taking that action, you need to think about the people that you spend most of your time with, and you need to let them sort of get into your subconscious and allow the way they think become part of the way you think. And the more time you spend with these people, the more you start thinking like them, the easier it will become to take that action, and because that's just norm for them. And the other thing is when, because things do go wrong. Yeah. When things go wrong, when you've built that group of people, I say 6, go after 6. Yeah. That are doing what you want to do, achieving what you want to achieve, and something goes wrong with the 1 or 2 things that you've bought. Yeah. Who are you going to call? Like, you've got 6 people to call, and if they don't have the answer, I guarantee you somewhere along the way, or somebody's dealt with the block that you have in your head as to reason why you shouldn't do it. Somebody's had to address it and survived. And the other thing I would say is that, the things I used to worry about way back when I first got started, like, they're happening to me. I'm not gonna lie, they're happening to me all the time now. I don't even think about that. They do not keep me up at night. The more properties you have, the less you worry about the things that are holding people. So don't get in, hit a roadblock, and give up. Get in, find your group of people that help you, support you, and are doing this, and this is their way of life. Stick around them, absorb their energy, the way they think. When something goes wrong, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Oh, yeah. Learn from the mistake. Build confidence that, okay, this happened to me. Here's how I solved it. And that won't happen to me again because now I know that. Yeah. You didn't know what you didn't know before. Now you do. So now there's more confidence to take that next step. And just keep going. The more you have, the easier it becomes. Yeah, this is that graduation process of, like, things used to really rile me, and then down the road, it's like I just build that into my budget and I expect it. Like, yes, but don't put yourself so tight that you've got no cushion. Yeah, like, always have that extra. Can we swear? Holy shit file. Yeah, for sure. That's what it all comes down to money. Like, at the end of the day, if you've not left any money in the account for anything to go wrong, you will not sleep at night. Yeah. Whereas if you just put the money in the account and say, I expect things to go wrong, and this is my I can sleep at night fund, done. No, the problem goes away. Yeah. And stop trying to do everything by yourself. Yeah. This is a team sport, and the creativity really goes insane when you bring other people in play. Yeah. 1 + 1 does not equal 2. 1 + 1 equals 10, 100, 1,000. Right. And that's why initially I was like, no, don't do JVs. And I think in certain ways, don't. Like, if you have all the skills and you don't need anything and it's a long-term keeper, like single family, then don't. But on the bigger stuff where creativity can really add value, rock on with JVs. I think that can really work well, provided you pick the right people and, the mindset's there. Yeah. So. Yeah.
Really appreciate this talk. That was great. If people want to follow you, learn more about you, where do we send them?
They can find me on Instagram at millionaire_mom_enterprises on Instagram. They can find you at my Millionaire Mom on Facebook.
Okay.
Or they can find me on my website at www.millionairemom.ca.
Okay, awesome.
Thank you.
Well, thanks, Susan. This was great.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Thanks for tuning in to today's episode. Please make sure to share this episode far and wide. Help it help more people. I really appreciate you tuning in. I'll see you on the next one.